Hi class. I forgot to do an example on the horizontal stretch and shrink. So this is just a quick example so that we can be able to understand what's going on. Okay. So if the description says, let's look at one, all right, and then we'll look at two. If the description says that you're supposed to stretch, horizontally stretch by, let's write this as a factor, by a factor of 3. All right, let's get rid of this. You have to be careful when you read this, all right, because remember that when we horizontally stretch, right, when we horizontally stretch, the C is supposed to be between 0 and 1. All right, so we can't just blindly go, this is f of 3x, and so the input changes to become square root of 3x. We cannot do that, all right, because we need to understand what's going on. It says horizontally stretch. So if you think about horizontally stretch, C is supposed to be between 0 and 1. So really this 3, right, was coming from 1 over what? 1 over C. So how do I get 1 over C? This would have to have been what? 1 over what? 1/3. So indeed, this is the 1 over C. The C is supposed to be a fraction. All right. So by definition, this is wrong, and we need to write the right one, which is f of what? 1/3 x is equal to the square root of 1/3 x. And this will tell you that you need to stretch horizontally by a factor of what? By a factor of 3. All right. Likewise, if I told you to to horizontally shrink by a factor of 1/3, remember that when we did horizontal shrink, C was supposed to be a number greater than 1. This is already in the form 1 over C. C is 3. So to solve that problem, this is f of what? 3x, and that would mean that this becomes what? 3x. All right, let's cross this out so that doesn't confuse anybody. So you have to be careful with horizontal stretch and shrink when it's described to you. If it's a stretch, you need to look at that factor and go, how does that represent 1 over C? So that you can get that fraction between 0 and 1 to put into your function. Likewise, if you had a horizontal shrink, then you're looking at that fraction that has been given to you and go, okay, how does that match up with 1 over C? Because we are always either stretch or shrink, we are doing it horizontally by a factor of 1 over C. You got to go in and go, okay, if I have 1 over C and I have 1 over 3, then C must have been what? C must have been 3. So I'm able to write that, okay? All right, let's look at a final example, and let's do a combination. So I have, let's say, x cubed plus square root of x. And I want to do maybe 3 sequence of transformation. I want to shift down by 2 units, 3 stretch vertically by 2. That's step 2. And step 3, stretch horizontally by 5. Okay, so to do this, let's understand what's happening. So I need to move this function here. So I need to move f of x down. So that's minus what? Minus 2. So if I look at the function was f of x. Now it becomes f of x minus 2. That would become x cubed plus square root of x minus 2. Now, if I'm going to stretch vertically by 2, that means that I'm taking the new function, this guy here, f of x minus 2, and I'm going to multiply that by what? By 2, because it says stretch vertically. It's affecting the y. I got to multiply the y by 2. So again, you come over here and you do 2 times f of x minus 2. So that would mean this is 2x cubed plus square root of x minus 2, which becomes 2x cubed plus 2 root x minus 4. And then it says stretch horizontally by 5. So if it's a stretch horizontally by 5, that means that what happened? You got to understand. So this is what is stretched by 5, meaning that this came from 1 over what? 1 over 5. All right, because when it stretches horizontally, we are saying that x moved bigger. X became bigger by what? By 5. So that means all the x values got multiplied by what? By 5. All the inputs get multiplied by what? By 5. All right, so in other words, c, this is in the form 1 over c. When c is a fraction, I am actually stretching. So I now know that the way this is worded, you got to be careful and go, okay, the input changed, so I'm changing this input to now 2 f of what? 1/5 x minus 2. So wherever I see x in the expression here in the black box, I have to replace that with what? 1/5 of x. So this becomes 2 1/5 x cubed plus 2 square root of 1/5 x minus what? Minus 4. Okay. All right. So horizontal stretch and shrink are very confusing sometimes. So if you're having a hard time, that's okay. We will look at it and practice some more so you get comfortable with it. Okay. All right. Cool. I will see you next week.